In this video, I'll be showing you a simple method to add a handle to a form to make a cup. I'm also going to show you how you can create a simple base known as a foot. To begin, you're going to need, of course, some clay. You're also going to need a scoring tool. So this is a metal tool that just has almost like a little comb at the end. And I'm also going to grab a modeling tool to help us smooth out some rough places. In addition, you're going to need slip. Make sure the lid is on tightly. Give it a little shake. Open it up. The shaking will, of course, mix it nicely, and also get the slip on the edge of the cup so that you can just stick your finger in there easily. So we'll set that over to the side, out of view, but we'll have it handy. To begin, we're going to be rolling out some coils. So I know that most people think of rolling coils kind of like making a snake, but what you want to do is begin by forming the clay into a cylinder about the size of your hand. Then you're going to set it on the table and begin rolling your coil with just the bottoms of your finger. You don't want to roll with the palm of your hand because that tends to flatten it too much. So I'm going to start rolling with just my fingers, and it really helps if you take a nice smooth motion like up and down. So maybe start at the tip of your fingers and then roll up and then back. Most times when we're rolling coils, it starts to get a little bit out of round. So this one is starting to get flat on one side. So the remedy is to just set it back up and tap it down, and then we can continue rolling. When you're rolling coils, you generally want to start kind of in the middle and then pull it out to the ends. Your coils won't be perfect, and that's okay. So what we want to do is get a coil that is, I would say, about as big around as your little finger. Most potters compare sizes of clay to parts of their hand, like their bit of their knuckle or one of their fingers, just because it's always right there. So I'm going to keep rolling until this is about the size of my pinky finger. It's personal preference, so if you want to do it a little bit differently, that's fine too. So I'm going to try to get that coil as nice as I can, and then all I'm going to do is simply fold it in half. So I'm going to squeeze it just a tiny bit and pat it down. And what I have now is a coil handle, and I'm ready to attach it. So to attach it to the mug, what I'm going to do is, I forgot to mention that you need a fettling knife too. This is a fettling knife. So we're just going to cut it on one end. This flat end is where we're going to connect it to your form that is going to be your mug. So choose a place that you want. Some people might like to choose a place where there's an imperfection that they want to cover up. So I'm going to score or scratch a little place right there where I want to attach it. I'm going to use some slip, and I can just get it a little bit on my finger. Cover that area with slip. You might want to put a little slip on your wet clay. It's not as necessary because this clay is wet. And I'll just do this just to make sure. And then I'm going to attach it by just sticking it right on there on the edge. And I want to be sure to press pretty good so it sticks, but you don't want to pinch it because you don't want this area to get real thin. Then we can just bend it down like this until it's about the size and shape that we desire it to be. So I think that looks pretty good. And I'll just kind of manipulate this around until I get that kind of where I want it to be. And then I'm going to trim off the excess. So now I've got my little handle there. And I kind of like that. So what I can do is just gently lift that up, making sure you don't weaken the part up here. And then we can just score this again. And I'll score the underside of this as well. We'll put a little slip. And we'll press that down. Now you got some options here. Might want to kind of make sure that's straight. Okay, press that into place. You could leave it just like this, depending on your design sensibility. That works great. You could also blend this in at the bottom. So say you want that to be a little bit more graceful of a transition. Just take your finger and blend that. Could also use a modeling tool. Okay. Could do the same thing on the top if you desire. You could blend here a little bit if you like, but you don't have to. Okay, so that's one method of creating a handle for your cup. Alternately, you could do it a little bit differently. So let's say you still have your two coils together. You could just trim that top and bottom and form it into the letter C or any other shape that you want, and then stick it on like that. So you got a couple different choices. You've got one that looks a little bit more like, I'll turn it this way. This one kind of looks more like a letter C, and then on this side it kind of looks more like a question mark. So that's just a personal preference. You choose whichever one you want. At this point, you might decide that you want some texture on your handle, particularly if it relates to your theme or the information that you're trying to communicate about yourself. So you could add little textures here, or you could just wait until we do our surface decoration, and you could carve those or paint those in later. I want to show you how to make what's called a foot, and then that will conclude this video. So you can set your handled cup over to the side. We're going to go back to our coils, and I'm going to this time create a second coil, only this one's going to be a little bit smaller, unless of course you have a design preference that relates to your theme, which would make it different. But I'm going to make this one about the diameter of a pencil, or you could use the scoring tool to kind of compare. You want something a little bit on the lighter side. So I've got this coil, then I'll take the cup, and what I'm going to do is just simply measure out how far I need on the coil to go all the way around the base of my cup. And then I'll use the fettling knife again. And what I'm doing here is cutting through both thicknesses of the coil. And I'm going to turn the cup so you can see that. So what I'm doing is cutting down through both thicknesses at once. And then I'm going to lift this top one off, take out the bottom, remove the extra, and then I should have a piece that's the exact size that I want. So I'll go ahead and kind of blend that together where the two pieces joined. And now I can just simply lift this off. And then I'll score here where I want that foot to attach. And again, it's really not critical to score and slip on your wet clay because it already has enough moisture content to adhere. But you do absolutely want to score and slip onto your clay from yesterday or any other day that is a little bit drier. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just press that into place. And again, this is an opportunity for you as the artist to make some design choices. So you might put that up, make sure that it's nice and straight. You don't want a cup that's kind of wobbly over. That foot should help you kind of overcome some variance in how thick and how wobbly this was. This will kind of help you level the whole thing out. And again, you could smooth right here if you want to. A lot of artists want this to be a smooth inside. So you could take your modeling tool and smooth that here, going all the way around. You could also do the same thing on the outside. Again, it's personal preference. I kind of like this little reveal right here because it just adds an interesting dimension and design element to my work. So that's a couple ways to make a handle and how to make a simple foot on your cup.